My son and my daughter-in-law told me at a family dinner, "You can live in squalor, we don't care." They were sitting in the living room I paid for, wearing clothes I bought, eating food I provided. So I smiled and said, "That is fine." The next day, I canceled 97 automatic payments and watched their luxury lifestyle completely run out in a few weeks. But let me tell you how I got to that moment. Because nobody makes a decision like that out of nowhere. Nobody cancels their own children's lives without a reason that breaks your soul first. It all started 3 years ago, when my son Tyler showed up at the door of my apartment with that look of anguish I had not seen since he was a teenager. Brittany was behind him, with her arms crossed over her designer blouse and that expression of superiority that I still did not completely understand, but which I would soon learn to recognize as her natural state. I was 67 years old back then. I had just retired after 42 years working in cleaning services, waking up at 4 in the morning every day, coming home with swollen knees and a wrecked back. My husband had died 2 years prior, and I lived alone in a small but decent apartment downtown, supported by my pension and the life insurance he left. "Mom, we need your help," Tyler said that afternoon, and I felt that maternal reflex activate inside my chest just as it had done since he was born 44 years ago. I let them in. I served them coffee in my old but clean mugs. I sat across from them on my worn-out sofa, the same one I had bought when Tyler was a teenager and had never had the money to replace. "What is going on, son?" I asked, although something inside me already knew that what was coming would not be a simple family visit. Tyler looked at the floor, unable to hold my gaze. "We lost the apartment. The landlord is kicking us out because he raised the rent and we cannot pay it. We have 2 weeks to leave, and we do not have money for the deposit on another place." Brittany intervened immediately, with that soft and manipulative voice that I would come to know well. "Barbara, we know that you have that money saved, your husband's life insurance that you have never touched. We just need a temporary loan. We will pay you back in 6 months. We swear." I had $50,000 saved. $50,000 that represented 42 years of brutal work, of sacrifices, of not buying myself new clothes, of not going out to eat, of saving every penny thinking about having a peaceful old age. That money was my cushion, my security, my only guarantee that I would not end my days depending on anyone. "It is just that that money is for emergencies," I said carefully, already feeling the pressure of what was coming. "And what is this, Mom?" Tyler responded, raising his voice for the first time. "Is it not an emergency that your son ends up on the street? What kind of mother are you?" That phrase fell on me like a bucket of ice water. What kind of mother are you? The words he would use against me during the following 3 years. Every time I hesitated, every time I tried to set a boundary, every time I tried to say no, I gave them $20,000. $20,000 for the deposit and the first months of rent on an apartment in an expensive part of the city. Much better than where I lived. "Just 6 months, they promised me. In 6 months we will pay you back everything." 6 months passed. There was no repayment. A year passed. Nothing. When I mentioned the topic, Tyler diverted the conversation, or Brittany invented a new crisis that made it impossible for them to pay me right at that moment. But the requests did not stop. On the contrary, they multiplied as if that first loan had opened a floodgate that could never be closed again. "Mom, we need help with groceries this month. We had unexpected expenses." I paid $400 for groceries. "Mom, the car broke down. We need $3,000 urgently for the mechanic or Brittany cannot go to work." I paid the $3,000. A week later, I saw them showing off a new car. The repair money had been the down payment for a vehicle that I could never have bought myself. "Mom, we need you to authorize us on your credit card, just for emergencies." And that was how my card, with an $8,000 limit, became their personal fund for luxury restaurants, designer clothes, nights out, and whims that I could never afford. Every month, I received the statement and saw charges at places I did not even know. Expensive department stores, restaurants where a dinner cost what I spent on food for a whole week, beauty salons where Brittany got her nails done, her hair, facials. I had to go back to work. At 68 years old, with knees that were destroyed and a back that hurt every morning when I got up, I got a part-time job at a grocery store. 8 hours a day standing at a cash register, charging customers who were sometimes younger than my own son, just to be able to pay the minimum on my credit card and cover my own basic expenses. While I worked to pay for their luxuries, they lived like royalty. And the worst of all was not the money. The worst was the invisibility. When I arrived at their apartment with the grocery bags that I had paid for, they did not even turn to look at me. I entered with my wrinkled hands carrying the heavy purchases. I arranged them in their pantry, filled their refrigerator, and left, like a useful ghost, like a delivery service with no right to a tip or a sincere thank you. "Thanks, Mom," Tyler murmured sometimes, without taking his eyes off the 65-inch television that I had bought them 6 months ago. Brittany did not even say thank you. She just opened the refrigerator after I finished organizing everything, checked with a critical expression, and complained if I had bought the wrong brand of yogurt or if the apples were not shiny enough. "Barbara, I already told you that I do not like this brand of milk," she said with that tone of annoyance, as if I were an incompetent maid. "Next time bring the organic one, okay? It is only a little more expensive." A little more expensive meant double the price, but I nodded, took a mental note, and the next week I bought the organic milk she wanted, even though at my house I drank the cheapest one in the supermarket because I could not afford more. My life had become an endless wheel. I worked at the grocery store from Monday to Saturday, 8 hours a day. On Sundays, I went to the supermarket to do their shopping. Then I took it to their apartment, arranged it, cleaned their kitchen a little because it was always dirty, and returned to my small apartment so exhausted that I could barely make myself something for dinner before collapsing into bed. My friends noticed the change. Susan, my best friend for 30 years, told me clearly one afternoon when we met at the park where we used to walk together. "Barbara, you look exhausted," she told me, taking me by the arm with genuine concern. "What is happening? Why did you go back to work? I thought that with your pension and your husband's insurance you could live peacefully." I tried to smile, but it was a tired smile that fooled no one. "I am helping Tyler. They had some problems, and I just want to make sure they are okay." Susan looked at me with those eyes that saw too much. "And you? Who ensures that you are okay?" I did not know how to answer her, because the truth was that nobody ensured that I was okay, not even myself. I had spent so much time being the one who solved problems, the one who rescued, the one who sacrificed, that I no longer even knew how to ask for help or how to say no. "I am fine, Susan." "Truly," I lied, because it was easier to lie than to admit that I was crumbling slowly. She did not insist that day, but I saw the concern on her face, a concern that I ignored because I had to keep going, because my son needed me, because that was what good mothers did. The months kept passing and the requests kept arriving, each one bigger than the last. "Mom, we need new furniture for the living room. The stuff we have is already very old." I paid $5,000 for living room furniture that I would never be able to use because it went straight to their apartment. Genuine leather furniture, a tempered glass coffee table, designer lamps. Meanwhile, I continued sitting on my 15-year-old sofa with the broken springs. "Mom, Brittany needs new clothes for her work. She has to look professional." I gave them my credit card and they spent $2,000 in a single day. $2,000 on clothes that Brittany would use to go to her part-time job in an office, while I continued using the same 3 pairs of pants and 4 blouses that I rotated every week because I did not have money to buy myself anything new. "Mom, we want to change the television. This one is already very small and old." The television that I had bought them was barely 2 years old, but it was not big enough for them. I paid $1,800 for a 65-inch one with 4K technology that I did not even understand. In my apartment, I had a 32-inch one that I bought used 7 years ago, and every time I paid for something, every time I gave them money, they received it as if it were their natural right, without gratitude, without recognition, as if I were simply an inexhaustible source of resources placed in the world to serve them. One day, while I was arranging their groceries in their kitchen, I found an envelope with bank statements that they had left on the table. It was not my intention to snoop, but the envelope was open and my eyes fell on the numbers unintentionally. They had $43,000 saved, $43,000 in their savings account. I stood paralyzed looking at that paper. $43,000. While I worked 8 hours a day at almost 70 years old to pay for their whims, they had almost the same amount of money that I had when all this started. Money that they were keeping for themselves while squeezing me to the last drop. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. I felt nausea. I felt a rage that I had never experienced before, but which was extinguished almost immediately under the weight of the justification that my mind created automatically. Maybe that money was for emergencies. Maybe they were saving it for something important. Maybe I was misunderstanding things. I put the paper back where it was and finished arranging the groceries in silence, with my hands trembling. That night, in my apartment, I sat on my old sofa and cried for the first time in years. I cried for my husband, who was no longer there to advise me. I cried for the strong woman I used to be and who, somehow, I had lost along the way. I cried for my knees, which hurt so much that I could barely walk some days. I cried for my bank account, which was emptier every month. I cried for my dignity, which I had traded for crumbs of attention from a son who no longer even looked me in the eyes. But the next day I got up, put on my store uniform, and kept going. Because that was what I did. Keep going, endure, sacrifice myself, until that family dinner arrived. That dinner that would change everything. It was a Sunday afternoon. I had spent the whole morning cooking in their kitchen. I had prepared pot roast, Tyler's favorite dish since he was a child. I had made homemade dinner rolls. I had prepared mashed potatoes, gravy, salad, and a cheesecake for dessert that took me 2 hours to make. They arrived late, as always. I already had everything served on the table, waiting. When they finally appeared, they did not even apologize for the lateness. "Smells good," said Tyler, sitting down without even greeting me with a kiss on the cheek. Brittany checked her phone while she sat down, writing messages to someone, completely oblivious to my presence. We ate in silence. Well, they ate while I watched them, feeling an emptiness in my stomach that had nothing to do with hunger. "The pot roast is a little salty," commented Brittany, without lifting her eyes from her plate. I did not respond. I only continued watching how they devoured the food that I had prepared with my tired hands, sitting in the chairs I bought, under the light of the lamp I paid for, in the apartment whose rent I was covering for 6 months because they had told me that temporarily they had cash flow problems. It was when I was serving dessert that Brittany decided it was the perfect moment to destroy me. She let her fork fall against the plate with a metallic noise that resonated in the whole room. Tyler looked up for just a second from his phone. They exchanged that complicit look that I already knew, and I knew that something bad was coming. "Barbara," said Brittany with that tone she used when she wanted to sound reasonable, but in reality, was preparing an attack. "We need to talk about your situation." I left the cheesecake tray on the table carefully, feeling a strange cold run down my spine. "My situation?" I asked, although something inside me already knew exactly where this conversation was going. "Yes, your financial situation," she continued, leaning back in the chair as if she were in a business meeting and not at a family dinner. "Tyler and I have been talking a lot lately. You know that we have our own expenses, our own goals, our own plans for the future." I looked at my son, waiting for him to say something, for him to at least have the decency to speak directly with me. But Tyler just looked at his phone, letting his wife do the dirty work as always. "I understand," I said with a calm voice, because I had learned that the calmer I showed myself, the more they revealed themselves. Brittany leaned forward, with those perfectly manicured nails that I paid for every 15 days shining under the light. "What we mean is that we can no longer keep depending on you for everything. It is time for everyone to take responsibility for their own life." The words floated in the air with an irony so brutal that it almost made me laugh. They, who depended on my money for absolutely everything, were telling me that everyone should take responsibility for their own life. "Depending on me?" I repeated slowly, feeling something dark awaken inside my chest. "Yes, Mom." Tyler finally intervened, although he still did not look me in the eyes. "What Brittany is trying to say is that you are already 70 years old. You already lived your life. You already did everything you had to do. Now we need to focus on building our future, on growing our assets, on living our own experiences, building their future, growing their assets, with my money, with my work, with my sacrifices, But of course, in their version of reality, they were completely independent and I was the one who depended on them. I do not want to be a burden to you, I said, and I meant it completely seriously. I had never wanted to be. It is not that you are a burden exactly, said Brittany, with that fake sweetness she used when she wanted to sound compassionate. It is just that we have to think about ourselves first. You already had your chance to live, to enjoy. Now it is our turn. I already had my chance. As if my 70 years had been a continuous party of fun, and not 4 decades of brutal work, of destroyed knees, of waking up at 4 in the morning, of cleaning other people's dirt so that my son could have a better life than mine. Besides, continued Brittany, now with a colder tone, more calculating, we have been thinking about traveling. We want to see Europe next year. We want to completely renovate the apartment. We want to trade in the car for a newer one. And for that, we need to concentrate our resources. Their resources. The resources that came directly out of my bank account every month. I understand that you want to travel, I said carefully, choosing every word. It is a beautiful thing to see the world. Exactly, said Brittany, as if I were finally understanding the point. That is why we need you to understand that from now on, we are going to prioritize our needs. You are going to have to make do with your pension. It is time for you to be independent. That I be independent. I, who had been independent my whole life until they appeared with their manufactured crises and their extended hands. I, who was working at 70 years old to maintain their lifestyle, while they told me that I needed to learn to fend for myself. Tyler finally put down his phone and looked directly at me for the first time in the entire dinner. Mom, do not be offended. We are not saying that we do not love you. We are just being realistic. You have your pension, you have your apartment. It is not like you are going to starve to death. I was not going to starve to death. That was their yardstick. As long as I did not starve to death, everything was fine. It did not matter that I worked until exhaustion. It did not matter that my life savings had evaporated supporting them. It did not matter that I could no longer buy myself new clothes, or go out to eat with my friends, or get a treatment for the pain in my knees. As long as I did not starve to death, they could keep squeezing me with a clear conscience. I am not offended, I said with a calm that surprised even myself. I just want to understand well. You are telling me that you no longer need my help. Brittany and Tyler exchanged another look. A look that clearly said that I was too stupid to understand the obvious. It is not that we do not need your help, said Brittany with exaggerated patience, as if she were explaining basic math to a child. It is that we cannot keep worrying about you. Each one has to look out for themselves. If you decide to live with less, if you decide to live more modestly, that is your decision. More modestly, I repeated. I, who already lived on the minimum while they swam in luxuries paid for with my money. Yes, she continued, now with a harder tone. Look, Barbara, let's be completely honest for once. We are 30 years younger than you. We have a whole life ahead of us. We cannot carry the responsibility of taking care of you in your old age. That is not fair to us. Taking care of me in my old age, as if I had asked them to take care of me. As if I had not spent the last 3 years taking care of them in every possible way while they took and took without giving anything in return except contempt. I have never asked you to take care of me, I said, feeling my voice break slightly for the first time. But you expect it, Brittany responded immediately. You expect it because you are from that generation that believes that children have to sacrifice themselves for parents. But we do not think like that. We believe in living our own life, in fulfilling our own dreams, their own dreams, financed completely by my nightmare. Tyler cleared his throat, uncomfortable for the first time in the whole conversation. What Brittany is trying to say, Mom, is that, well, if you decide to live with less, if you decide to live even in misery, that is your decision. We do not care. We have to think about us first. That is how things work in the real world. You can live in misery. We do not care. There they were. The words that would change everything. The words I had been waiting years to hear without knowing I was waiting for them. The final confirmation of what I already knew deep down, but refused to accept. To them, I was not their mother. I was a resource, an ATM, a source of money that had stopped being convenient. I looked around the room, the living room I paid for, the furniture I bought, the clothes they were wearing that came from my credit card, the food they had just devoured and that I cooked with ingredients I paid for, the entire apartment whose rent I was covering, and them, sitting there with their stomachs full and their consciences empty, telling me that I could live in misery and that they did not care. Something broke inside me in that moment. It was not a dramatic break. There were no screams, no crying, no plates smashed against the wall. It was something much deeper and quieter. It was the last thread of hope that I had been holding on to for 3 years, believing that one day they would wake up, that one day they would see everything I had done, that one day they would look at me with gratitude and genuine love. That thread broke. And with it broke the fear too. The fear of saying no, the fear of disappointing them, the fear of being a bad mother. All that fear that I had used against myself for so long simply disappeared, replaced by a cold and absolute clarity. I smiled. It was a small, quiet, almost peaceful smile. The kind of smile that appears when you finally understand something you should have understood a long time ago. "That is fine," I said with a voice so soft that Brittany had to lean forward to hear me. "You are absolutely right. You need to think about yourselves first. It is the most sensible thing." I saw surprise cross Brittany's face for a fraction of a second. Clearly, she had expected tears, pleading, maybe a dramatic scene where I begged them to reconsider. But I was not going to give her that pleasure. Not this time. Not ever again. "Oh," she said, recovering her composure quickly. "I am glad you finally understand, Barbara. It is much more mature of you. That way we can all move on without resentments or guilt. Without resentments or guilt. As if the guilt had been mine all this time. As if I had been the selfish one." I stood up from the table slowly, gathering the dessert plates with calm and deliberate movements. "Let me wash this before I leave," I said with the same soft voice. "Do not worry, Mom," said Tyler, looking back at his phone. "We will do it later." But I knew they would not. The plates would stay there until the next day, when I returned as always to clean their mess. Except this time, there would be no next day. This time, something had changed forever. I washed the dishes in silence while they moved to the living room to watch television. I heard them laughing at something on the screen, completely oblivious to the earthquake that had just occurred inside me. For them, this had been just another uncomfortable but necessary conversation. For me, it had been the end of an era. I dried my hands on the kitchen towel, a towel I had bought in a pack of 6 2 months ago, and took off my apron. I folded it carefully and left it on the kitchen counter. It would be the last time I would use it in this apartment. "I am leaving," I announced from the kitchen. "Okay, Mom," responded Tyler without turning to see me. "Drive carefully." Brittany did not even respond. She was too concentrated on her phone, probably sending messages to her friends about her travel plans to Europe, that she would visit with the money that should be in my savings account. I took my purse and left the apartment, closing the door softly. I did not slam it. I did not need to. The noise that mattered had already occurred inside my head, where something had finally awakened after years of forced hibernation. I went down the stairs slowly, my knees protesting with every step. When I reached my car, an old sedan of 15 years that barely ran but was all I could afford, I sat in the driver's seat and stayed there in silence for several minutes. I did not cry. I had no tears left for them. Instead, I felt something different growing in my chest. It was not exactly rage, although there was rage there. It was not sadness, although sadness was present. It was determination. It was clarity. It was the cold and calculated decision that this ends now. I took my phone out of my purse and dialed Susan's number. She answered on the second ring. "Barbara, what happened? Are you okay?" she asked immediately, because after 30 years of friendship, she could read my mood even through the phone. "Susan, I need you to come to my house. Now. Please," I said with a firm voice. "I am on my way," she responded, without asking more questions. I drove to my apartment with my hands firm on the wheel, my mind functioning with a clarity I had not experienced in years. Every traffic light, every street, every turn brought me closer, not only to my house, but to a decision that was already completely formed in my head. When I arrived, Susan was already waiting for me at the door of my building. She saw me get out of the car and knew immediately that something important had happened. She hugged me without saying anything, and that silent hug was more comforting than 1,000 words. We went up to my apartment and I made coffee. We sat on my old sofa with the broken springs, and finally, I spoke. They told me that I can live in misery and that they do not care. I said without preamble, without context, because I did not need it. Susan knew exactly who I was talking about. I saw how her face transformed from confusion to disbelief and finally to pure indignation. "What?" she exclaimed. "Tyler told you that." Tyler and Brittany, both of them. Sitting in the living room I paid for. Using clothes I bought. After eating food I cooked with ingredients I paid for. Susan put her coffee cup on the little table with more force than necessary. "Barbara, please tell me that you are not going to keep giving them money. Please tell me that this was the straw that broke the camel's back." I looked her directly in the eyes. "It is worse than that, Susan. It is much worse. And I need your help." During the next hour, I told her everything. Not just what had happened that night, but everything I had been keeping quiet for 3 years. I told her about the $20,000 they never paid back. I told her about my credit card that they used as if it were theirs. I told her about the weekly groceries, the furniture, the car, the clothes, the expensive restaurants. I told her that I had to go back to work at almost 70 years old to be able to sustain their luxuries while they treated me like I was invisible. And I told her about the $43,000 I saw on their bank statement. The $43,000 they had saved while leaving me to work until exhaustion, paying for their whims. Susan listened to everything in silence, her expression becoming darker with every revelation. When I finished, she was trembling with rage. "Barbara," she said with a controlled voice, but full of fury, "do you have any idea how much money you have given them in these 3 years?" I shook my head. "I never calculated it. I was afraid to know." "Well, we are going to calculate it right now," said Susan, getting up from the sofa. "Bring your statements. All of them. From the last 3 years." I went to my small desk where I kept my papers. I had a folder with all my bank and credit card statements, organized by month. I had never reviewed them carefully because it hurt too much to see how my money disappeared month after month. We spread them out on the dining table and began to review. Susan had her phone calculator in her hand, and I pointed out every charge I had made for them. "Groceries, $400, I said, and Susan added, "Restaurant, $230. Department store, $1,500. Gas station, $150. Beauty salon, $300. We continued like that for almost 2 hours, reviewing every month, every charge, every transfer I had made. With every number we added, I felt something grow inside me. It was not just rage, it was recognition. It was seeing in cold and concrete numbers the magnitude of the abuse I had been suffering. When we finally finished, Susan showed me her phone screen with the total. I stared at those numbers, unable to breathe. $187,000, said Susan with a trembling voice. "Barbara, in 3 years you have given them $187,000. I felt the floor move beneath my feet. $187,000. Almost everything I had saved from a lifetime of work. All of my husband's life insurance. Everything I had kept thinking about having a dignified old age, about being able to pay for medicine if I got sick, about having a safety net. $187,000. I repeated aloud, needing to hear the words so they felt real. My God, Susan, $187,000. Susan took my hands in hers. "Barbara, look at me. This is not your fault. They manipulated you. They used you. And now they tell you that you can live in misery and that they do not care after having stolen almost $200,000 from you." "They did not steal from me," I said automatically, because there was still a part of me that wanted to defend them. "I gave them the money. I decided to help them." "Help them?" Susan's voice rose in volume. "Barbara, helping is giving someone what they need to survive. This was exploitation. They have $43,000 saved. They did not need you. They used you." The words fell on me like stones, each one of them true and painful. Susan was right. I knew it. But admitting it meant accepting that my son, the child I gave birth to, the child for whom I sacrificed everything, had seen me as nothing more than a source of money. I do not know what to do, I admitted finally, feeling the weight of 70 years of life on my shoulders. Susan got up and began to walk from one side of my small living room to the other, thinking, "First, we need to know exactly how many automatic payments you have set up. Do you have any idea?" I shook my head. Many. It started with 1 or 2, but every time they needed something new, I set up another automatic payment so they would not have to ask me every month. It was easier that way. Easier for them, murmured Susan bitterly. Okay, we are going to log into your online banking and we are going to make a list. Every single automatic payment you are making. I sat in front of my old laptop and opened the bank page. My hands trembled while I typed my password. When we entered the automatic payments section, what I saw left me breathless. The screen showed page after page of scheduled payments. Some were monthly, others weekly, some even daily. Susan took a notebook and began to write down each one while I read them aloud. Rent for their apartment, $1,800 monthly. Automatic groceries, $500 weekly. Netflix, HBO, Disney Plus, Spotify Premium. Insurance for Tyler's car, gas, prepaid card, $200 weekly. Brittany's gym, $120 monthly. Brittany's beauty salon, $300 every 15 days. Minimum payments on 3 credit cards in my name, but that they use. Internet and cable service, electricity and water for their apartment, Amazon Prime membership, digital magazine subscriptions, supplemental health insurance for Tyler. The list went on and on. With every payment I named, Susan made a mark in the notebook, her expression becoming more somber. There were payments I did not even remember having set up, things they had added using my banking information. When we finished reviewing everything, Susan counted the marks in the notebook. She looked at me with wide eyes. "Barbara," she said with a breathless voice, "you have 97 automatic payments set up. 97. I stared at her, unable to process the number. "It cannot be. Count yourself," she said, passing me the notebook. I did. I counted every mark, every line, every payment that left my bank account automatically. 97. 97 different ways in which I was financing the luxury life of my son and my daughter-in-law while they told me I could live in misery. "Some are small," I said weakly, still trying to find a way for this not to be as terrible as it seemed. "The Netflix is only $15. Barbara." Susan grabbed me by the shoulders and forced me to look at her. "Listen to me well. Every month, just in automatic payments, you are giving them more than $5,200. That is without counting the times they ask you for extra money for emergencies or when they use your credit card for their purchases. Your pension is $2,300 a month. How have you been surviving?" "I work at the store," I said in a low voice. "I earn $1,000 a month there, and I have been using my savings to cover the difference." "Your savings that almost do not exist anymore," completed Susan. "Barbara, at this rate, in less than a year you are going to be completely out of money. You are going to lose your apartment. You are not going to be able to pay for your own medicines. And do you know what is going to happen when that occurs?" I did not answer because I knew the answer, and it hurt too much to say it aloud. "They are not going to help you," said Susan with deliberate harshness. "They told you tonight. You can live in misery, and they do not care. When you no longer have anything to give them, they are going to leave you thrown away like a used rag." The tears finally came, but they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of rage, of recognition, of years of denial finally breaking under the weight of the truth. "What do I do, Susan?" I asked, wiping the tears with the back of my hand. "What can I do?" Susan sat next to me and spoke with a firm and clear voice. "Tomorrow we go to the bank. Tomorrow you cancel every one of those 97 automatic payments. Every one. Without warning them, without explaining to them, without giving them a chance to manipulate you again. But they are going to be left with nothing from one day to the next," I protested, because even after everything, even knowing what they had done to me, I still worried about them. "They have $43,000 saved, Barbara," Susan reminded me patiently. "They are not going to die. They are not going to end up on the street. They are going to have to use their own money for the first time in 3 years. They are going to have to live with their own resources like normal adults. Tyler is going to hate me, I said, and those words hurt more than I expected. Tyler already does not see you, Barbara, responded Susan softly but with brutal honesty. He does not see you as his mother. He sees you as a resource, and when a resource runs out, it is discarded. That is exactly what they told you tonight. You are no longer useful to them, so they are discarding you. Why do you keep protecting them? I had no answer for that. Or maybe I had it, but I did not want to admit it. Because admitting that my son did not love me, that maybe he had never really loved me, but only for what I could give him, was destroying the image I had built of him for 45 years. I am scared, I confessed finally. I know, said Susan, hugging me. But Barbara, listen to me. If you do not do this now, if you keep allowing them to use you, in a year you are going to be on the street for real. It is not an exaggeration. Your numbers do not lie. You are running out of money. And when that happens, who is going to take care of you? Because they already told you they do not care. We spent the rest of the night talking. Susan helped me make a plan. First, we were going to go to the bank first thing in the morning. We would cancel all automatic payments. Then, we would block all additional cards that were in their names. After that, I would change my bank password and all my online passwords. Do not warn them, Susan warned me. If you warn them, they are going to come with tears and promises, and they are going to manipulate you again. Do it first. Let them find out when their cards are declined and their services start getting cut off. It is cruel, I said. No more cruel than telling your 70-year-old mother that she can live in misery while she spends her money on luxuries, Susan responded without hesitating. That night I barely slept. I stayed awake looking at the ceiling, thinking about everything that had happened, about everything that was to come. I thought about the child Tyler had been, the sweet boy who hugged me and told me he loved me. I wondered at what moment that child had disappeared, replaced by this man who looked at me with cold and calculating eyes. At 6 in the morning I got up, showered, and dressed carefully. I chose black pants and a white blouse, simple but dignified clothes. I looked in the mirror and saw a 70-year-old woman with honestly earned wrinkles, with tired eyes, but that still had a glimmer of determination. Not the same woman who had entered that apartment the night before. Something fundamental had changed. Susan arrived at 8 o'clock sharp, punctual as always. She was carrying 2 coffees in disposable cups and an expression of unwavering support. "Ready?" she asked me, extending one of the coffees. "Ready?" I responded, and I meant it. The bank opened at 9. We arrived 15 minutes early and waited in the parking lot. Susan went over the plan with me one more time. We go in. You ask to speak with an account executive. You tell them you need to cancel all your automatic payments and block all additional cards. If they ask you why, you just say it is a personal decision. You do not need to justify yourself. And if they make me feel bad? And if they tell me that my beneficiaries are going to be affected? I asked, because I knew the power of guilt over me. Then you look at me, and I remind you that your beneficiaries told you last night that you can live in misery and that they do not care, Susan responded firmly. When the bank opened its doors, we entered together. The air conditioning hit me in the face, giving me a sensation of cold clarity. I approached the reception desk and asked to speak with an account executive. They made us wait 10 minutes. 10 minutes during which my mind tried to convince me to back out 1,000 times. 10 minutes in which I imagined Tyler's face when he discovered what I had done. 10 minutes in which guilt tried to drown me. But every time I felt I was weakening, I looked at Susan, and she nodded her head, reminding me why I was there. Finally, they called us. The account executive was a young man, maybe 35 years old, with a gray suit and professional smile. "Good morning, Mrs. Lewis. How can I help you today?" "I need to cancel all my automatic payments," I said with a firm voice. "All of them?" "Without exception." The executive blinked, surprised. "All of them?" "Mrs. Lewis, I see here that you have 97 automatic payments set up. Are you sure you want to cancel all of them?" "Completely sure. This can affect your beneficiaries," he warned with a worried tone. "Services set up can be cut off. Rent payments can be late." "I know," I said calmly. "It is exactly what I want." The executive looked at me with a mixture of confusion and curiosity, but he was professional. Very well. This is going to take approximately 1 hour. Do you wish to wait, or do you prefer to return later? We will wait, Susan responded for me. The process was long and tedious. The executive had to cancel each payment manually, one by one. With every cancellation, I felt something release inside my chest. It was like untying 97 knots that had been suffocating me for years. Rent for the apartment, canceled. Automatic groceries, canceled. Streaming services, canceled. Car insurance, canceled. Gym, canceled. Beauty salon, canceled. One after another, all the threads that tied me to sustaining the luxury life of my son and daughter-in-law were cut with a click of the executive's mouse. I also need to block all additional cards linked to my account, I said when he finished with the automatic payments. The executive reviewed his screen. You have 3 active additional cards. The 3? The 3? More clicks. More liberation. Something else, Mrs. Lewis? Yes. I need to change all my access information. Passwords, security questions, everything. And I need nobody but me to be able to make changes to my account. No beneficiaries, no authorized users, nobody. The executive nodded and proceeded to make the changes. When he finished, he handed me a folder with all the documentation. Ready, Mrs. Lewis. All your automatic payments have been canceled. All additional cards have been blocked. Your access information has been updated. Is there anything else I can help you with? No, I said, feeling a gigantic weight lift off my shoulders. That is all. Thank you. We left the bank, and I stopped in the parking lot, breathing deeply. The morning air felt different. Cleaner, lighter. How do you feel? Susan asked. Terrified, I admitted, but also free. For the first time in 3 years, I feel free. Susan hugged me tight. This is just the beginning, Barbara. Now comes the hard part. She was right. The hard part was waiting. Waiting for them to realize. Waiting for them to start receiving notices of declined payments. Waiting for their perfect world to start crumbling. I did not have to wait long. 2 days later, my phone began to ring. It was Tyler. I let it go to voicemail. He called 3 more times. Then Brittany started calling. Then text messages started filling my screen. Mom, there is a problem with the rent. Call me urgently. Barbara, my card, was declined at the supermarket. What happened? Mom, answer the phone. Barbara, this is not funny. We need to talk now. I ignored every message, every call. Susan had come to stay with me during these days, knowing that I would need support to not give in to the pressure. Do not answer. She reminded me every time my phone rang. Let them feel what it is like to be ignored, what it is like to need help, and nobody responds. On the 3rd day, Tyler appeared at my apartment. He knocked on the door with such force that I thought he was going to knock it down. I was inside with Susan, waiting for exactly this. Mom, I know you are there. Open the door, he was shouting from the hallway. Susan looked at me. Do you want me to stay, or do you prefer to face him alone? Stay, I said. Please. I opened the door. Tyler was disheveled, with deep dark circles under his eyes and an expression of fury I had never seen on him before. What the hell did you do? He demanded, pushing the door to enter without waiting for an invitation. Hello, Tyler, I said calmly. What a surprise to see you around here. Do not play with me, Mom. You canceled all the payments. All the cards are blocked. You went crazy. I sat on my sofa with deliberate tranquility. Susan stood near me, a silent but protective presence. I did not go crazy, I said with a soft voice. I just took your advice. My advice? What the hell are you talking about? The advice that you and Brittany gave me 3 days ago. That everyone has to look out for themselves. That you need to think about yourselves first. I decided you were right. I also need to think about me first. I saw the realization cross his face. That was just a conversation. We did not mean that you cancel the payments, I interrupted him. But, Tyler, you told me that if I decided to live in misery, you did not care, that you had to take care of yourselves first. I am just following your philosophy of life. His face turned red. Mom, you cannot do this. We have obligations. The rent is due in 2 days and the landlord already sent us a notice. The cards are being declined everywhere. They cut our internet. Brittany cannot pay for her gym. You have $43,000 saved, I said calmly. You can use that money. The surprise on his face was genuine. How do you know that? I saw your bank statement 2 months ago, when I went to bring you the groceries that I paid for and you had it on the table. Tyler stayed silent for a moment, processing. That money is for our future, for emergencies. And isn't this an emergency? I responded with the same calm. The rent you cannot pay, the groceries you need to buy, all those things that according to you were so important, well, now you can use your own money to pay for them. Tyler began to walk from one side of my small living room to the other, running his hands through his hair with frustration. Mom, you do not understand. We have been saving that money to buy a house, for our future. We cannot spend it on day-to-day things. The words fell on me like acid. They had been saving for their future while spending my money, the money I needed for my old age, on their daily whims. They had been building their assets on the ruins of mine. Interesting, I said with a dangerously soft voice. You can save for your future while spending my money, but I cannot save anything for mine. Is that how it works? It is not the same, he protested. We are young. We have to build something. You already lived your life. I already lived my life, I repeated, feeling something dark and powerful grow inside me. The $187,000 I gave you in the last 3 years, those were part of my already lived life. Tyler froze. $187,000. $187,000, I confirmed. Susan and I reviewed every statement, every transfer, every payment. That is what you have cost me in 3 years. Almost everything I had saved from 42 years of work. I saw his face pale. For a moment, I thought that maybe, just maybe, this would make him see the magnitude of what they had done. I thought that maybe he would feel shame, regret, something human, but then his expression changed. The surprise transformed into defensiveness, and the defensiveness into attack. We never asked you for that much, he said with an accusing voice. You offered it to us. You insisted on helping us. You cannot blame us for accepting what you voluntarily gave us. I felt as if he had given me a physical slap. Never asked me for that much? Tyler, every week it was something new, every month a new emergency. And every time I hesitated, you told me what kind of mother was I, if I let my son suffer. Because it is true, he responded, raising his voice. A real mother helps her children. A real mother sacrifices herself. But you now decide to be selfish, and we are the bad guys. Susan took a step forward, her voice cutting like a knife. Tyler, your mother worked 42 years cleaning other people's filth so you could have an education. She sold her wedding ring to pay for your last year of college, and now, at her 70 years, she has been working in a grocery store to be able to keep paying for your luxuries while you and your wife have $43,000 put away. And you have the nerve to call her selfish. Tyler glared at her. This is none of your business, Susan. It became my business when I saw my best friend of 30 years destroy herself for an ungrateful son. Susan responded without backing down. When I saw her cry because she did not have money to buy her medicines while you walked around in designer clothes she paid for. Mom, said Tyler, ignoring Susan and looking back at me. If this is because of what we said the other day, it was just a stressed conversation. We did not mean it seriously. You know we love you. You love me? I asked softly. Tyler, when was the last time you asked me how I was? When was the last time you called me without needing something? When was the last time you looked at me like your mother and not like a bank, feeling years of pain finally come to the surface? Never. In 3 years. You have never asked me if I am tired, if my knees hurt, if I can afford to buy my own food. Not a single time. Because we assumed you were okay, he said weakly. You did not assume anything, I corrected him. You simply did not care. As long as I continued being useful, as long as there was money, I was invisible. And when I finally told you I was tired, what did you tell me? That I could live in misery and that you did not care. Tyler dropped onto my sofa, his fury transforming into something that looked like desperation. Mom, please, we cannot lose the apartment. Brittany is very stressed. She is already looking for cheaper apartments. We need time. Just reactivate the payments for 1 more month. I beg you." And there it was. The manipulation I knew so well. The pleas, the guilt, the implied promise that this time would be different, that this time it would be just 1 more month, that this time they would really appreciate what I did. 3 days ago, those words would have worked. 3 days ago, I would have given in. I would have gone back to the bank. I would have reactivated everything because guilt would have eaten me alive. But that woman no longer existed. "No," I said firmly. Tyler raised his head sharply. "What? No, I am not going to reactivate any payment. I am not going to keep financing your life. You have $43,000. You have 2 jobs. You are adults. It is time you act like them." "And we are supposed to use our savings?" he asked with disbelief. "The savings that took us years to gather." "Years to gather while you spent my money," I pointed out. "Yes, Tyler, use your money, your own money. The concept shouldn't be that difficult to understand." He got up from the sofa, his expression hardening. "Okay, I see how things are. When you needed help raising me, when Dad died and you needed emotional support, we were there. But now that we need something, you turn your back on us." The manipulation was so obvious it almost made me laugh. "Tyler, when your father died, you came to the funeral, stayed 2 hours, and I did not hear from you again for 3 months. You did not call me to see how I was. You did not ask if I needed help. You appeared 3 months later asking for money for a down payment on a new car. I saw how his face turned red, knowing I had hit the mark. And regarding raising you," I continued, feeling decades of saved words finally letting go, "I raised you alone after your father died. I worked 2 jobs. I broke my back. I sacrificed my youth, my health, my dreams, all so that you had opportunities that I never had. And now you tell me that you helped me. How exactly did you help me, Tyler? How?" He had no answer, just heavy and accusing silence. "This is because of Susan, right?" he said finally, looking for someone else to blame. "She put these ideas in your head. She is poisoning you against your own family." "Susan is the only one who has worried about me in years," I responded. "The only one who noticed I was exhausted. The only one who asked me if I was okay. The only one who helped me see that what you were doing was abuse." "Abuse?" Tyler almost shouted the word. "Now we are abusers because we accepted the help that you offered us?" "It was not the $200,000 that was abuse," I said with a trembling but firm voice. "It was the lack of gratitude. It was the invisibility. It was treating me like a service and not like a human being. It was looking me in the eyes and telling me I could live in misery and that you did not care after everything I gave." Tyler took his phone from his pocket and began to type furiously. "I'm going to call Brittany. She needs to hear this." "Call her if you want," I said calmly. "It changes nothing." Tyler spoke with Brittany on the phone, in a low but agitated voice, walking toward the door of my apartment. After a few minutes, he hung up and looked at me with eyes full of something that looked like genuine hatred. "Brittany says, 'You are a bitter old woman who is jealous of our happiness,'" he said with poison in every word. "She says you always knew you were a toxic and manipulative mother, and that is why Dad was probably glad to die to escape you." The words hung suspended in the air, like visible poison. I felt as if the air had been ripped from my lungs. Susan let out a stifled cry of indignation, but I simply stood staring at my son, this man who came out of my body, whom I fed, whom I cared for when he was sick, whom I comforted when he had nightmares. And in that moment, something inside me died. It was not painful. It was liberating. "Get out of my house," I said, with a voice so cold that even I surprised myself. "Mom, I didn't." "Get out of my house now," I repeated, getting up from the sofa. "And do not come back. Do not call me. Do not text me. Do not appear at my door again. It is over, Tyler. Everything. It is over." I saw something pass over his face, maybe the recognition that he had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. But it was too late. Years too late. "Fine," he said finally. "If that is how you want it. But do not come crying when you are alone and sick and have nobody. Do not come looking for your family when you really need us. My family, I repeated with a bitter laugh. Tyler, I haven't had a family for years. I only had a son who saw me as an ATM and a daughter-in-law who despised me. I am going to be better alone than accompanied by people who hate me. He left, slamming the door, making the walls of my small apartment shake. When the sound faded, I remained standing in the middle of the living room, trembling, but not from fear, from relief. Susan hugged me, and this time I did cry. I cried for the son I lost, or who maybe I never had. I cried for the years I wasted waiting for something that was never going to arrive. I cried for the mother I was and the woman I had forgotten to be. But I also cried from liberation. The following days were difficult. My phone did not stop ringing with calls from unknown numbers. Messages from Brittany oscillated between desperate pleas and legal threats. Barbara, please, be reasonable. Think of your future grandchild. If you do not reactivate the payments, we are going to sue you for family abandonment. You are a cruel and bitter woman. You are going to die alone. I blocked all the numbers. I changed my phone number and only gave it to Susan and 2 other close friends. A week after the confrontation, I received a call from the landlord of the apartment where Tyler and Brittany lived. He had gotten my new number through the bank because I had been the one who signed as guarantor when they rented the place. Mrs. Lewis, your son and your daughter-in-law have not paid the rent. I understand that you were the one making the payments. What is going on? I am no longer responsible for their payments, I told him firmly. Remove my name as guarantor. They are adults and must answer for their own debts. But you signed a contract. Check that contract, I interrupted him. There is a clause that allows me to withdraw as guarantor with 30 days' notice. I gave that notice 2 weeks ago in writing. I have the copy with the received stamp. It was a lie. I had not sent any notice. But the landlord did not know that, and my tone left no room for doubt. He hung up without saying more. Susan had helped me investigate my legal rights. Turns out that since they were independent adults, I had no legal obligation to support them. The additional cards were in my name, so I had every right to cancel them. The automatic payments were voluntary, and I could stop them whenever I wanted. Legally, I was completely protected. Emotionally, I was starting to heal. 2 weeks later, I found out through a mutual acquaintance that Tyler and Brittany had to move to a much smaller and cheaper apartment. They had sold the new car and bought a used one. Brittany had quit her luxury gym, and Tyler had stopped eating at expensive restaurants. They were living like normal people, with a normal budget, paying their own bills with their own money. The life that I had facilitated for them had disappeared completely in a matter of weeks, exactly as I knew would happen when I canceled those 97 payments. And I did not feel even a shred of guilt. Instead of working 8 hours at the grocery store, I reduced my hours to part-time. With the money I was no longer spending on them, I could live comfortably with my pension and a partial job. For the first time in 3 years, I reached the end of the month with money in my account. I started buying things for myself. Nothing extravagant, but things I needed and had been denying myself. New clothes, a better mattress for my bed because the old one hurt my back, medicines for my knees that I previously could not afford, a subscription to the gym for seniors where I could do gentle exercise in the pool. I went back to going out with my friends. Simple dinners at modest restaurants, but paid with my own money without the pressure of financing other people's luxury lives. Susan, Rose, and Carmen became my true family, the women who really cared about me. A month after everything, Susan arrived at my apartment with a strange expression on her face. "Barbara, I have to tell you something," she said, sitting on my new sofa, one that I had bought for myself with my own money. "What is it?" "I saw Tyler yesterday at the supermarket," she said carefully. "He looked different, tired. He saw me and wanted to talk to me. I felt a pang in my chest, but I ignored it. And what did he say to you?" "He asked me about you. If you were okay, if you were sick, if you needed anything." "And what did you tell him?" I told him the truth. "That you are better than ever, that you look 10 years younger, that finally you are living your own life." Susan paused. "Barbara," he cried, "he told me he made a terrible mistake, that he did not realize what he had until he lost it." I stayed silent, processing the information. A part of me, that maternal part that never dies completely, felt a pang of pain for my son crying in the middle of the supermarket. But another part, the wiser part that had awakened in these last weeks, knew that those tears were not of genuine regret. They were tears of inconvenience. They were tears because his comfortable life had ended. "What do you feel hearing that?" Susan asked softly. "Nothing," I said honestly. "Or maybe sadness for the son I could have had but never had. But I do not feel the impulse to run to save him again. That woman died." Susan smiled with pride. "I am glad to hear that. Did he tell you anything else?" "Yes." Susan hesitated a moment. "He said Brittany left him, that she expected him to convince his rich mom to keep paying for everything. And when it became clear that wasn't going to happen, she packed her things and left. He said he realized that she never loved him. She only loved the lifestyle your money provided." The irony was so perfect it almost made me laugh. Tyler had finally experienced exactly what he made me feel. Being loved not for who he was but for what he could provide, and being discarded when that source dried up. "Poor Tyler," I said without any real emotion. "Now he knows how it feels." 3 days after that conversation, Tyler appeared at my door. This time, he did not knock with fury. He knocked softly, almost timidly. I opened the door but did not invite him in. He looked terrible. He had lost weight. He had deep circles under his eyes. His clothes, although clean, were simple and old, none of the expensive brands he used to wear. "Hi, Mom," he said with a hoarse voice. "Hello, Tyler. Can we talk? I think we already said everything there was to say. Please." His eyes filled with tears. "Just give me 5 minutes. 5 minutes, and if afterwards you want me to leave, I leave and I won't bother you again." Against my better judgment, I opened the door and let him in. I did not invite him to sit. We remained standing in the middle of the living room. 5 minutes, I said, crossing my arms over my chest. Tyler breathed deep, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. "Mom, I don't even know where to start. I have spent the last weeks thinking about everything. About every conversation, every moment, everything I said to you." I waited in silence. I was not going to make this easy for him. "Brittany left," he continued with a broken voice. "She left me 2 days after you canceled the payments. She said she hadn't married me to live like a poor person, that if I couldn't give her the life she deserved, then there was no point staying together." "I am sorry," I said automatically, although I wasn't sure if it was true. "Don't be sorry," he said bitterly. "You were right about her, about everything. I was just too blind to see it. Or maybe I didn't want to see it because it was more comfortable to keep using your money than to face reality." He kept silent for a moment, looking at the floor. "I had to sell the car. I had to move to an apartment that costs $400 a month. I work overtime to be able to pay the rent and food. And do you know what is the worst, Mom? That this is exactly what you lived through for years to support me when I was a child, working until exhaustion just to survive. And I lived it for 2 weeks and I almost collapsed. You lived it for decades." The tears ran freely down his face now. "I didn't realize, Mom. I didn't realize everything you sacrificed. I didn't realize how much I was hurting you. I didn't realize until everything collapsed and I was left alone, without money, without Brittany, without you. And I realized that the only real thing I had in my life was you, and I treated you like garbage." I felt something move inside my chest, but it was not the old reflex to run and comfort him. It was something different. It was compassion, yes, but also firm boundaries. "Tyler, I appreciate you being here. I appreciate that you finally see what happened. But I need you to understand something." I paused, choosing my words carefully. "I am not going to be your solution again. I am not going to sacrifice my well-being for yours again. That version of me no longer exists." "I know," he said quickly. "I didn't come to ask you for money, Mom. I swear. I came because I needed you to know that I am sorry, that I regret every horrible word I said to you, that I regret having treated you as if you were invisible, that I regret not valuing you when I had you." "And what do you want from me now?" I asked directly. "Nothing," he responded, and for the first time in years, I believed him. "I just wanted to ask for your forgiveness and tell you that if someday, maybe, you could forgive me even a little, I would like to try to have a real relationship with you. Not a relationship of a mother who gives and a son who receives. A relationship of two people who respect each other. I stood looking at him for a long moment. I saw the broken man in front of me, and I also saw the child he used to be. But more importantly, I saw a person who finally, after everything, was learning what it meant to be responsible for his own actions. Forgiveness is not something I can give you today, I said honestly. You hurt me deeply, Tyler. You used me. You made me feel invisible in my own life. That is not erased with an apology, however sincere it may be. He nodded. The tears kept falling. I understand. But, I continued, feeling the words form as I spoke, I am willing to consider the possibility of rebuilding something, not what we had before, because that was broken from the start, but maybe something new, something healthy, something based on mutual respect. I saw hope light up in his eyes. Seriously. But with very clear conditions, I said firmly. You will never ask me for money again. Never. If you have financial problems, you solve them yourself like the adult you are. Second, we see each other when I want to see you, not when you need something. Third, if I ever feel again that you are using or manipulating me, I disappear from your life forever. Understood? Understood, he said without hesitating. Mom, I just want to know you for real. I want to know what you like to do. I want to hear you talk about your life. I want to be your son for real, not your dependent. Then we are going to go slow, I said, very slow. Maybe a coffee every 2 weeks to start, and we see how it goes. Tyler approached as if to hug me, but stopped, waiting for my permission. I thought about it for a moment and then nodded. The hug was short, but genuine. Thanks, Mom, he whispered. I am not going to let you down this time. I hope so, I responded, for your sake and mine. When he left, I sat on my new sofa and stared out the window. I did not know if Tyler would really change. I did not know if we could rebuild something real. But for the first time, that uncertainty did not terrify me, because now I was okay, with him or without him. The following months were transformative. Tyler kept his word. He did not ask me for money. We met for coffee every 2 weeks, and slowly, very slowly, we began to know each other as people, and not as provider, mother, and needy son. He told me about his work, his efforts to live on a limited budget, the lessons he was learning. I told him about my swimming classes at the gym, my outings with my friends, the books I was reading now that I had time and energy for that. It was strange. It was uncomfortable at times, but it was real. 6 months after that family dinner that changed everything, I was sitting in a cafe with Susan, Rose, and Carmen. We had gone to the movies, something I had not done for years because I never had money. Now I could afford these small luxuries. You look happy, commented Rose, smiling at me over her cup of cappuccino. I am, I said, and it was true. My phone vibrated with a message. It was Tyler. Mom, would you like to come to dinner at my apartment on Sunday? I am going to cook, just the two of us. No hidden agenda. I just want you to try my pasta. I looked at the message and smiled. No hidden agenda. Those words would have been impossible 6 months ago. Good news? Asked Susan. I think so, I responded. Tyler invited me to dinner. He says he is going to cook. My friends exchanged looks of concern. Are you sure it is a good idea? Asked Carmen cautiously. No, I admitted honestly, but I think it is worth trying. And if it doesn't work, if I see any sign of manipulation, I get up and leave. But I owe it to myself to give him a chance to be different. That night, in my apartment, I made myself a chamomile tea and sat on my small balcony that overlooked the street. The fresh night air caressed my face. I thought about everything that had happened, about the woman I was a year ago, exhausted, invisible, emptying herself to fill others. And I thought about the woman I was now. I was still 70 years old. My knees still hurt. I still had wrinkles and gray hair. But I also had something I hadn't had in years. Peace. Peace knowing that my value did not depend on how much money I could give. Peace knowing that I deserved respect and dignity. Peace knowing that it was okay to set boundaries, even with the people I loved. Peace knowing that I could live for myself without being selfish. My phone vibrated again. Another message from Tyler. And Mom, I just want you to know that I love you. Not for what you can give me, just because you are my mother, and I am finally learning to appreciate you." I read the message twice. Maybe it was genuine, maybe not. Time would tell. But it was no longer my job to guess intentions or carry responsibilities that did not belong to me. I responded, "I love you too, son. See you on Sunday." And then I turned off my phone and kept enjoying my tea, the fresh air, the quiet silence of my own life. Because in the end, after 70 years of living for others, after decades of sacrifices, after almost losing myself completely in the process of keeping my son afloat, I had finally learned the most important lesson of all. I could not take care of anyone else if I did not take care of myself first. I could not love others healthily if I did not love myself first. And I could not give others a dignified life if I myself was not living with dignity. That night, when I lay in my bed with the new mattress that did not hurt my back, I closed my eyes and felt something I hadn't felt in years, something simple but deep. I felt that my life belonged to me, and I whispered in the darkness of my room a truth that had taken 70 years to learn. At last, after so many years taking care of everyone, I learned to take care of myself. And I discovered that peace is not found forgiving who hurt you. It is found when you decide that your life is worth more than their regret. It is found when you understand that loving someone does not mean destroying yourself for them. It is found when you learn that the word no does not make you a bad person. It makes you a complete person. And for the first time in my life, I was complete. I was sufficient. I was free. And with that truth embraced against my heart, finally, I slept in peace.